So you asked, where will Deion Sanders be coaching in 2023? It's a fair question. A lot of people chimed in with their opinion. So let's go to our first one here. This one comes from Benar Khan, who says, I think the best spot for him and the school is Miami. What do you think?
I think that's a good choice, on par with USC. It's a private institution that cares about its football, and it's one in which Deion Sanders would have the South Florida recruiting area to his advantage. And this is a man that has been really great in recruiting over the last couple of years, has the best recruiting class in the FCS. And also, it's Power 5 conference and a Power 5 program, right? Miami also has its own, shall we call it, chain around its neck, where it doesn't seem to know how to get out of its way here since 2002. Maybe Deion Sanders could overcome that. I don't think that's a bad option.
I don't think it is either. I think Miami fans might be a little hesitant because just a few months ago, they were super excited about Mario Cristobal, and I know that the season hasn't really gone to plan for them, but I still think there's reason to be hopeful about him in the future, but we'll see. This next one comes from Optimistic Longhorn fan, and Optimistic Longhorn fan says, I'm going to say Auburn. Again, another coach or another program with a coach currently on staff, but we all know how that's been going over the past few months.
It feels like Brian Harsin is on borrowed time and has been since February of this year, when they didn't sign anybody during the during the signing day period. And there was a lot of folks trying to actually get him up out of his chair, out of the job. So it feels like that job is going to come open in the near future unless Auburn has a miraculous turnaround. But also in here, I don't think that Auburn is a good football job. I mean, Gus Malzahn was doing as good as anybody has done there since maybe Pat Dye. And he beat Nick Saban, and yet what did he have to show for it? A kick in the butt on the way out. Now he's at Central Florida, and they are a one-loss team with an opportunity to play for a conference championship and maybe backdoor into the best spot for a group of 5 team in the New Year's Six Bowls. I just don't see that as a place that really would let Deion Sanders be Deion Sanders, which is what you would be hiring. If you want to keep the controls at Auburn, that's not your man. To add to that, who's the athletic director? And would that person be interested in going to get a Deion Sanders? I don't think so, and I think it's nice to be mentioned, but I would turn that job down, Tyler.
Yeah, and I get why, too. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Auburn fans in the program, but their expectations are extremely high. Now, it doesn't help that their in-state rival has dominated the sport for the past decade plus, so I understand when you're comparing that to your rival, you're going to have lofty expectations. But if Deion were to go there, I don't think he'd really have a whole lot of time to turn things around. But let's move on to our last one. This one comes from G-Do. Shout out to G-Do because they're always in your mentions and have submitted a few questions in the past. So glad we get to showcase them here. They say, he's staying at JSU. I think that's where he can do the most good and be the most beneficial right now. How do you feel about that?
Appreciate Gito for being engaged with the content and really enjoying the show. I think that this is the move in 2023. I don't think that Deion Sanders is going anywhere. I think he will be coaching at Jackson State next year and perhaps continue this run of undefeated football in a new era for Jackson State. And this is actually a great opportunity to talk about what differentiates HBCU football and Jackson State from the rest of college football. Many of you will know that it is an HBCU, meaning historically black college university. And one of the things that makes HBCU football important and also unique is the classics. Okay. The classics are HBCU bowl games. Those are the ones that matter. The Orange Blossom Classic used to decide the Black College Football National Championship. Now, we don't necessarily need to do it anymore, but we enjoy the tradition. Just as you enjoy your traditions, say the Skull Sessions at Ohio State, or being able to see the walk at Oklahoma, or touching Howard's Rock at Clemson. The classics are what you have in HBCU football. As a matter of fact, the Bayou Classic is one of my favorite games all year because the pageantry around it is such a big deal. That'd be Grambling versus Southern. This weekend, you'll know that the big game for Jackson State is against Southern in the Boombox Classic. Now, if Jackson State beats Southern and runs the table and gets to the SWAC championship and wins the SWAC championship, they will play in the Celebration Bowl against the MEAC champion for what we are calling the Black College Football National Championship, or the de facto Black College Football National Championship. Now, there are other HBCU conferences, but this is the tie-in, right? And this is traditionally how college football works. The tie-ins and the rankings decide who plays for a national championship and who does not. Now, The FCS playoffs will begin before the Celebration Bowl is played, which means that in all likelihood, a Jackson State that wins a SWAC championship does not play in the FCS playoffs. You'll also know FAMU had an opportunity to do this last year because they lost to Jackson State in their division, and Jackson State was playing for a championship and FAMU was not. Also underscores just how meaningful it is for Deion Sanders to be at Jackson State, because there are many people who just don't know this history or never had a reason to learn this history, or were never asking the questions of what's going on at Jackson State, which, again, full credit to him for. But I'm also going to add here, while he has had the best recruiting class in FCS, he also knows he does not have the guys he needs up front, defensively and offensively, to play at a very high level. That said, North Dakota State's athletic director asked in August if they could schedule a game with Jackson State, knowing that they're the best program in the FCS, and Jackson State is the most popular program in the FCS, and Jackson State said no. You'll also notice Jackson State's schedule does not feature a single FBS opponent, which is another way of saying they're not taking the guarantee game, because it is much more beneficial and important to Jackson State and Deion Sanders that they have an opportunity to run the table undefeated, because we're talking about them because they run the table undefeated. We don't particularly care that they snuck past Campbell. We don't particularly care that they have to go play Alabama A&M. What we're looking at is the wins and the 0 losses. And when that 0 becomes a 1, people do not care as much about your program. That's how college works. We don't care about conference championships so much as we care about, did you run the table undefeated against what we think is something like competition. And for Jackson State, they are playing competition. The SWAC is a difficult conference in as far as they play in it. But I also think I'm on Deion Sanders being at Jackson State because the good he can do. There are lots of players who he can affect, who he can change their career paths just by being connected with him. You're seeing this with his own children, Shiloh and Shador. Shador had a sit down with Michael Strahan on Big Noon Kickoff. We've never done that for an HBCU. We've never done that for an FCS program. We're talking about the dude on GMA, one of the best sack masters in all of football, and quite frankly, a gorgeous personality, in one Michael Strahan having a conversation with Shador Sanders because he signed Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady is still Tom Brady. And for Shador to be connected to Tom Brady is one thing, but it's also because Deion Sanders has that relationship with Brady where Shador gets to say to his uncle, Tom, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And continue to develop. If he can extend those sorts of connections to the players on that roster, my goodness, could you change the fortunes of a university that is up against it? It's no secret that Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the union, right? I was raised there. I spent the first 9 years of my life in Hattiesburg, just down the street from Southern Miss. My family is from Hattiesburg and Jackson in Rankin County. That at one point, we're talking about not even having drinkable water. So for you to be able to be Deion Sanders where you are and turn this thing into the kind of program that people are proud of, I love, that intrinsically has to mean more. That said, if you are going to leave Jackson State, please do not leave Jackson State for anything less than Alabama. I've said it. My plan would be, hey, Nick Saban is going to coach for as long as he's going to at Alabama. I know that he's signed an extension through 2074 or whatever. But then I would say to Deion Sanders, hey, we have a spot for you if you want it, because we have the resources and the fan base to let you go win. That's not something Georgia Tech can say. That's not something that Auburn can say. You have to be looking at programs on that level. And right now, all of the programs that are on that level, where you have the financial and fan base backing that you would need to compete for national championships, are taken. So I think we're going to sit here and wait through 2023 and possibly even 2024, 2025 for Deion Sanders to just run it up until such a job comes open. And then he could say, yeah, I want to go see what that looks like. Or no, I'm going to do good here at Jackson State. Producer Tyler, what do you think?
Well, a couple things. One, I don't imagine the person who has to replace Nick Saban. There's probably very few people in the world who are up to that task, but I would think that Deion Sanders is probably up for it. One quick follow-up. You think they've ever talked about the succession plan during their Aflac commercial tapings? You think that's ever come up?
You know, I doubt it, because they had a spat, right?
Right.
They had a spat that needed to be cleaned up, kind of like Nick Saban getting it in with Deion Sanders and Jimbo Fisher in the same year. Didn't know that it was going to be on the 2022 bingo card, but I'm sure that Nick Saban is on his Kobe Bryant. My favorite Kobe Bryant quote is, "Hey, Kobe, you're getting long in the tooth. You've blown out the Achilles. Are you passing the torch?" To which Kobe said, "I'm not passing expletive." I think that's where Nick Saban lives. I'm not passing anything. I don't care who's got the job after I have it, because I got it right now.
Right. And he just signed that long-term extension, too. I don't think he's looking at the finish line anytime soon.
Thank you for watching the #1 college football show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so that you don't miss any of the best college football coverage in America.